It wasn't the bird's song that woke him, or the slanted beam of morning light slicing across the cabin floor like a judgmental spotlight. It was the sound of someone humming. Elliot Brandt had lived alone in the woods for 6 years, 3 months and 17 days, give or take a bad dream. No one should have been in his chair, much less humming in it, especially not at 6:43 in the morning. He opened one eye cautiously, like a man testing the temperature of an idea, and sure enough, there she was, legs crossed, back straight, a steaming cup of what had better not be his coffee, cradled delicately in both hands. She looked like a woman mostly, shoulder-length dark hair, olive skin, a face too symmetrical to trust, but her ears were long, elegant, curved like the tips of crescent moons, twitching slightly with every creak of the old cabin walls. She was dressed in a bodysuit the color of magnetized ash, subtle threads of metallic blue running along her limbs, like veins of logic. "I thought you might prefer waking naturally," she said, not looking at him, "though I did consider replicating the sound of your cabin's smoke detector for efficiency." Elliot sat up on the cot, blanket tangled around his legs, hair performing a hostile takeover of his forehead. "Who? What? How are you in my chair?" She looked at him now, tilted her head slightly, as if disappointed. "That's your first question? Not why is there a mysterious woman in my home? Or how did she bypass 23 layers of perimeter defense? That chair has lumbar memory foam," Elliot said, blinking hard. "I've spent years shaping it. It knows me." She nodded, solemn. "It has accepted me now. I believe it has moved on." Elliot flailed out of bed like a man half stuck in a spider dream. "You broke into my cabin, drank my coffee, and emotionally compromised my chair." She raised one finger. "I did not break in. The lock accepted my entropy signature after a brief discussion." "Lady, that's called hacking." "It's called diplomacy," she said. "And my name is Vela." Elliot stared, not at her ears, not at the way she somehow radiated calm and smug superiority while holding a mug labeled "World's Okayest Geologist." Just stared. Vela took a sip. "This is disappointing, burnt, bitter, aggressively unkind to the tongue." "That's because it's real coffee," Elliot muttered, "not whatever soy-based sympathy fluid you aliens drink." "So you're aware of my non-Earth origin?" She looked faintly pleased. "I live off-grid. If you weren't a cryptid, a time traveler, or an alien, I'd honestly be disappointed." Vela set the mug down precisely on the coaster, because of course she respected furniture boundaries. "Then let's dispense with subtleties. I'm here for you." Elliot snorted. "Flattered, but I've sworn off interstellar dating. The last one stole my identity and left me with 2 parking tickets on Mars." "You misunderstand," she said. "You've been chosen." A long silence. A distant woodpecker tapped with uncomfortable timing. Elliot scratched the back of his neck. "Chosen for what? Target practice?" Vela stood up. Her movement was effortless, like water deciding to become a person. She reached into a side pouch. How long had she been carrying a side pouch? And pulled out a sphere no bigger than a tangerine. It floated above her palm, humming. "This is the seed of resonance," she said. "It responds only to minds that meet a very rare pattern. Chaotic logic, untethered empathy, and untrained brilliance. We've been searching for decades. Hold up. Back up. Untethered what now?" Elliot took a cautious step toward the kitchen table and grabbed a spoon. Not a weapon, just emotionally reassuring. "The ancient rite is clear. Anulkai must venture forth and find the one human capable of shifting our species' trajectory. You." "Why do ancient space rituals always involve weird humans in cabins?" Elliot muttered. "Did I win a lottery or something?" "The sphere chose you. It's not random. You share unique neural harmonics with an extinct Nulkai philosopher. We believe you might be a reincarnated parallel." "I've been called a lot of things," Elliot said, sitting slowly, "but that's a new one." Vela lowered the sphere. It hovered closer to him, emitting a faint tone that sounded uncomfortably like a tuning fork tuned to guilt. "You're not obligated," she said, though the word had the weight of a paradox. "But if you refuse, I will be disgraced. My house will fall, and you will never find out why this device reacted to your subconscious memories at 0214 Galactic Standard. Elliot paused. Is that a threat or a pitch? Both. I'm optimizing for human decision-making patterns. Do you have any idea how unqualified I am for whatever this is? She smiled for the first time. Small, crooked, vaguely amused. Exactly. Elliot sighed, ran a hand down his face and muttered something that sounded like intergalactic telemarketers. The sphere pulsed once, glowing brighter. His chair creaked, seemingly in approval. Okay, he said finally. I'll listen, but I'm not joining a cult, touching a god rock, or attending any sacred nudist ceremonies. I have boundaries. Viola inclined her head. Then we begin with breakfast. Your protein source is primitive, but I can adapt. You're cooking? I'm scanning, but I believe I can synthesize something edible. Last time I heard that sentence, I lost 3 teeth and most of a friendship. She stepped toward the counter and picked up a frying pan, as though it were a sacred relic. The sphere hovered behind her like a loyal pet. Elliot glanced at the sky through the window. Somewhere out there, stars hummed. He had no idea what he was in for, but at least he wouldn't have to eat instant oatmeal alone. Elliot had never been yelled at by an egg before, but this morning came close. The thing Vela served him, allegedly a molecular mimic of a human breakfast, had the consistency of foam insulation and emitted a sound he could only describe as philosophical sizzling. It didn't smell like food. It smelled like curiosity and unresolved trauma. I call it Synthovo Batch 1, Vela said proudly, watching his expression like a lab technician watches a frog try to operate a microscope. I call it breakfast gaslighting. You consume carbon-based avian ova nearly every day, she countered. My synthesis ratio was within 1 deviation of your metabolic preference. It's vibrating, Viola. I'm not eating anything that's fighting back. It's excitement. It's twitching. They stared at the plate for a moment longer before Elliot pushed it gently away, like a parent disowning a haunted doll. Viola, undeterred, turned her attention back to the hovering sphere, which had started emitting a low harmonic tone every time she looked at Elliot for more than 3 seconds. So what happens if I'm not the guy? He asked, pouring himself the weakest coffee the cabin's filters could legally tolerate. Viola didn't look up. Then the sphere deactivates. I am exiled. My family becomes a punchline, and your cabin may or may not implode, depending on how close the harmonics are to critical collapse. That escalated quickly. Welcome to Sacred Prophecy. The sphere pulsed gently. Elliot narrowed his eyes at it. I still don't get it. You said I share neural harmonics with some ancient philosopher. You know what else shares my brain pattern? A ferret with commitment issues. What exactly are you hoping I'll do? Change us, Viola said plainly. Resonate so deeply with our species that your existence disrupts our trajectory. You are the variable in our equation. Elliot took a long, scalding sip of coffee. That's a terrible plan. Yeah, she said, but it's also our best one. The cabin creaked around them, tired wood holding its breath. Outside, pine trees swayed like they'd been listening in. Elliot stared into his mug as if the caffeine could explain the cosmos. It didn't. Okay, he said finally. Say I'm your chosen one. What do I actually do? You want me to make a speech? Splice DNA? Give a TED Talk? Vela tapped the sphere. First, we calibrate. Then we transceive. Then we initiate the rite. Sounds like an alien dance routine. It's more like mutual neurosensory entanglement. Oh, good. That cleared it right up. She handed him a slender band, metallic and cool to the touch. It writhed slightly like it had stage fright. Put it on your wrist, she said. It will synchronize our cognitive frequencies. Elliot hesitated. Will this kill me? Possibly, but only if you resist synchronization violently. Comforting. He slid the band on. It snapped into place with a whisper of warmth. Instantly, a pulse ran through his bones. Not painful, just aware. Like someone turned on a light behind his eyes. Oh, he said, blinking. Oh, that's not normal. Vela blinked too. Fascinating. Your brain is enthusiastic. Is that what you call a panic attack where your teeth feel nostalgic? The sphere chimed. A soft flicker projected between them. A constellation map, ancient and beautiful, but shifting. Stars rearranged themselves according to invisible laws. Symbols drifted across the hologram in elegant, fluid glyphs. Some of them looked suspiciously like doodles Elliot had once drawn on a sandwich wrapper in college. "What is this?" "It's what you remember," she said, "even if you don't know you do." He reached out. One of the stars pulsed under his finger and whispered, not in words, in meaning, in the taste of carbon dust and a lullaby he never learned. He stepped back, heart thudding. "That's not mine." "It is now," Viola said, eyes wide. "You're unlocking Nualkai memory strata." Elliot shook his head. "I don't even unlock my mailbox regularly." But the map remained, rotating slowly in the air. The sphere drifted between them, singing softly in a language no throat had spoken in millennia. The rest of the day unfolded like a cosmic first date. Vela explained her mission's parameters using terms like genetic conceptualization vectors and cognitive entropy tolerance, while Elliot responded with nods, squints, and the occasional popcorn metaphor. She analyzed his old notebooks and found accidental harmonic equations hidden between shopping lists and coffee stains. He tested her patience by insisting they name the sphere Kevin. "Kevin doesn't resonate with the dignity of its function," Viola protested. "It's short. It's simple. It hums. Kevin." The sphere didn't object. Kevin it was. They spent the evening sitting across from each other, separated by a table cluttered with half-functional tech, scribbled equations, and one bowl of untouched synth-ovo still ominously warm. "So what happens next?" Elliot asked, rubbing his temples. "We begin phase 2, Viola said. Mutual neural descent. I hate everything about how that sounds. You'll lie down. The sphere will guide us into a shared dream space." "Oh, great. Psychedelic brain therapy with a sentient snow globe. It will allow us to merge interpretive frameworks. I don't even merge lanes on highways." She paused, looked at him. "You're frightened." "No," Elliot said quickly. "I'm exhausted, overwhelmed, undercaffeinated, and yes, okay, maybe a little terrified I'm being turned into a myth." Vela nodded once. "You are, but we're rewriting the myth as we go." That night, Elliot lay on the floor while Kevin hovered silently above, casting faint light over the room. Vela sat cross-legged across from him, her eyes closed, hands resting lightly on her knees. "Don't think too hard," she said gently. "Just allow." Elliot closed his eyes. Stars moved behind his eyelids, not like points of light, but like thoughts stretching across the void, curious and ancient. Somewhere deep in the neural static, he heard laughter, his own and someone else's. A child, maybe. A woman. A memory he hadn't earned. In the moment before the dream took hold, Elliot whispered, "If I see any sacred nudist rituals, I'm out." And then Kevin hummed, and the world turned inside out. Elliot opened his eyes and found himself standing in the middle of a library the size of a moon. It wasn't metaphorically moon-sized. It was literally constructed on the crust of a small moon, complete with low gravity, bioluminescent vines coiling around the support beams, and floating aisles of books that refused to stay still unless you asked them nicely. "This is your neural convergence landscape," Viola said, floating serenely beside him in a bubble of teal light. "It's generated from the dominant symbolic structures in your subconscious." Elliot turned slowly. "So my brain thinks the best place to merge alien consciousness is a floating moon library." "With an espresso bar," she added, pointing toward a shimmering stall manned by a large translucent eel wearing bifocals. "That actually tracks." Kevin hovered nearby, flashing softly like a politely enthused firefly. The sphere's presence gave off an energy somewhere between divine reverence and deeply suspicious cheerfulness. "All right," Elliot said, pulling himself toward a nearby shelf. "Now what? We play charades with our soul fragments? Have a psychic trust fall?" Vela drifted up beside him. "We identify the points of cognitive overlap, the aspects of you that already resonate with Nualkai pathways. The dream space will shape itself accordingly." A book launched itself off a shelf and hit Elliot in the head. "Is that part of the process?" he asked, rubbing his temple. Viola caught the book mid-spin and opened it. The pages flickered like thin screens, showing flashes of his childhood. Blurry parks, disappointed teachers, one particularly aggressive squirrel. These are memory echoes, unfiltered. They surface when your subconscious deems them narratively dramatic. Elliot sighed. So my own psyche is turning this into a clip show. Vela nodded. Efficiency through chaos. Classic human cognitive defense. Another aisle spun open like a fan, revealing a door labeled Processing Room. Please knock before interdimensional self-confrontation. Kevin chimed encouragingly. Nope, Elliot said. Absolutely not. That sign was entirely too specific. Vela floated toward it. Come, your harmonics are already stabilizing. The longer we linger, the more likely the dream structure becomes metaphysically sentient. As if on cue, one of the bookshelves growled softly. Of course it does, Elliot muttered, following her. Inside the processing room, the environment shifted. The walls became mirrors, not just reflective surfaces, but emotional mirrors. Elliot caught glimpses of alternate versions of himself. Confident Elliot, smiling on a podium. Sad Elliot, sitting in the rain under a broken umbrella. An Elliot in a lab coat, younger, hopeful, arguing with someone he loved and lost. Vela watched silently. Your inner constructs are highly layered. I call it emotional lasagna, Elliot said. Years of therapy baked in, still kind of undercooked in the middle. The reflections turned toward him, one by one. The confident one stepped out first. Hey, it said, voice just a little smoother, a little more dangerous. Remember when you thought you were going to change the world? Not now, Elliot said. Too late. This is the rite of potential, baby. Time to unpack some unresolved ambition. Vela stepped between them. This is part of the process. The system tests your identity boundaries by manifesting conceptual doppelgangers. Elliot stared at her. Do you practice talking like a self-help supercomputer? She ignored him. Another reflection emerged. This one was silent, staring at the floor. It was the version of Elliot that never left his apartment after the shuttle accident. The version that didn't retreat to the woods, but retreated inward and stayed there. Elliot flinched. Do we really have to do this? He asked. Vela placed a hand on his arm. It is not about reliving. It is about integrating. The New Alkai stagnated because we edited our lineage down to only what was perfect. No mutation, no deviation, no discomfort. The silent Elliot raised his head. His eyes were hollow but not cruel. That's what this is, she continued. You're not chosen because you're flawless. You're chosen because your mind tolerates contradiction. Elliot looked at his reflections, now all watching him. So, I'm special because I'm a mess? Yes, Viola said softly. A coherent, statistically improbable mess. Kevin beeped. The reflections stepped back, merging into a light that pulsed with slow, harmonic rhythm. The room responded, panels shifting, data flooding the air like golden snowfall. A vast, alien tree bloomed out of the center of the chamber, its roots hanging from the ceiling, its branches shimmering with equations and whispered memories. Whoa, Elliot whispered. That's new. That is your resonance architecture, Viola said. Your mind just translated alien genetic symbology into botanical metaphor. It's beautiful. It's unpredictable, Vela corrected, which is better. The tree began to pulse. A glyph appeared in the air, 3 intersecting spirals with a strange heartbeat beneath them. Vela's eyes widened. That's a seed vector. You're generating a viable seed pattern. This is ahead of schedule. Should I be scared? Yes. The ground trembled, not with danger, more like anticipation. The tree dropped a glowing fruit into Elliot's hand. It pulsed in time with his own heart. Vela stared. The rite is real, and you just passed the first trial. Wait, that was a trial? Kevin buzzed affirmatively. The library shuddered. The ceiling peeled away into stars. Vela snapped her fingers, and the environment dissolved. Elliot bolted upright in the cabin, gasping. Vela was already awake, eyes bright, skin shimmering faintly. You saw it too, he said. I felt it. Your resonance unlocked a pattern even our eldest couldn't model. Elliot looked down. In his hand, still glowing faintly, was a fruit-shaped memory fragment. He pointed at it. This isn't just symbolism, is it? No, she said. This is proof. He lay back down and stared at the ceiling. So what now? I get crowned Space Therapist of the Year? You'll need to present the seed vector to the High Assembly. Do I have to wear robes? No. Do I get a space badge? No. Jetpack? No. Then what's the point? You are the point, Vela said a little too seriously. Elliot groaned and threw a pillow over his face. I liked it better when my biggest responsibility was feeding raccoons. Kevin spun once and landed on his chest like a cat made of math. Elliot sighed. Phase 3 loomed. When the Newell Kai delegation arrived, it was in a spacecraft shaped like a harp. Not harp-like, not vaguely resembling. No. A giant, actual harp, drifting through Earth's upper atmosphere with eerie elegance, its massive golden strings emitting harmonic pulses that messed with local radio signals and made every pigeon within 3 miles dramatically spiral out of the sky like they just remembered they owed someone money. Elliot stood on his porch in flannel pants, watching the ship descend with a travel mug in one hand and a frying pan in the other. Should I salute? Bow. Offer them a coupon? Vila, standing beside him in a freshly pressed uniform that shimmered with subtle quantum filigree, didn't blink. Just don't speak first, and under no circumstance refer to anyone as Chief Harp Commander. That title hasn't existed in over 6 centuries, and its reintroduction might be considered an act of sarcasm warfare. Noted, Elliot said. No Harp Commander. I'll just call them Bob. Please do not. The ship landed with all the subtlety of a sigh. A hatch opened, a ramp extended. Out walked 3 beings that looked vaguely like statues carved by someone trying to remember what humanoids were supposed to look like. Their robes shimmered. Their ears were longer than Vela's, almost ceremonial in curvature. One of them carried a staff that appeared to be growing slowly. The middle one spoke. You are Elliot Brandt, the human selected by the right? Most days, Elliot said, except Mondays. Vela tensed slightly. The elders stared at him as though unsure if he was an organism or an experiment gone rogue. The elder on the right, a narrow-eyed figure with translucent skin and a voice like a disapproving bell, stepped forward. We have reviewed Vela's reports. The data is concerning. Chaotic resonance, dreamscape irregularities, symbolic fruit manifestation. You have not been trained. You have not been filtered. That's the point, Vela said. The right doesn't require training. It requires deviation. Elliot coughed. Also, I'm right here. The elders turned in unison. The leftmost one spoke now, voice slow and echoing. You will undergo the synaptic mirror. It is the only way to verify authenticity. Elliot took a long sip from his mug. That sounds either like a new therapy technique or the worst possible escape room. It is a ritual of consciousness, Vela said quietly. You will face your mind as it is reflected through alien architecture. If you emerge intact, the right is validated. If not, I become a cautionary tale. You become compost for the harp ship's root drive. The staff one nodded solemnly. Recycling is sacred. Elliot sighed. Fine. Lead the way to the cosmic panic attack simulator. Inside the ship, everything hummed. Not metaphorically, literally. The floor buzzed like a tuning fork trying to keep a secret. As they moved down halls made of translucent, sound-reactive resin, Elliot tried not to think too hard about the fact that the entire structure seemed to be made of memory and opinion. The synaptic mirror chamber was spherical, of course. Glowing lines curved around the room like the inside of a thought. In the center hovered a chair that looked suspiciously dental. You'll sit, said the staff elder. The mirror will do the rest. I'm sure it will, Elliot muttered, and then maybe it'll also fix my taxes. He sat. Instantly the chamber dimmed. The walls folded inward. Vela's face was the last thing he saw, tight with worry, but also trust. Then everything exploded. Not literally, more like emotionally. He was somewhere else, a city made of nerves and glass. Roads paved in memory, skyscrapers built from arguments and failed jokes. Somewhere a giant billboard was playing his 8th grade talent show on loop, and he still missed the high note. Welcome, Elliot, said a voice that sounded exactly like his high school principal, but with better posture. You again, Elliot muttered. This version of himself was different. Clean-shaven, ambitious, wearing a lab coat covered in chalk-like algorithms that moved when you blinked. This is the part where you either break or integrate, Mirror Elliot said. No pressure. I've had breakfast more stressful than this. Have you considered that your greatest strength is your capacity to make jokes when you should be screaming? It's either that or cry in Helvetica. The dream city rippled. A train roared past, carrying passengers who all looked like people Elliot once disappointed, some of them fictional. He didn't question it. What do you want from me? Elliot asked. Mirror Elliot gestured. This is your mind on resonance. It's trying to fit an alien structure into your emotional architecture. You've got metaphors fighting metaphors in here. If you don't stabilize soon, the whole place will collapse. Okay, so I make peace with myself, hug my past, and the dream architecture stops being passive-aggressive? Close. You have to believe you're capable of disrupting perfection. You have to own your pattern, not reject it, not apologize for it. A shadow passed overhead, a massive one. The sky darkened. Something was descending. Elliot said, pointing. That normal? Mirror Elliot looked up. Oh, that's the final stage. What is it? Your inner critic, and also maybe a guilt-powered space jellyfish. It landed with a weight that rippled across memory itself. It had his face, but older, worn, tired, covered in symbols that pulsed with doubt. You again, Elliot said. The older version frowned. You should have never come back. You're not special. You're not chosen. You're just the only one dumb enough to say yes. Yeah, Elliot said. But here's the thing. I don't need to be special. I just need to resonate. And apparently my specific brand of emotionally repressed chaos is exactly what the universe ordered. The guilt jellyfish Elliot roared. Elliot stepped forward anyway. You know what you are, he said. You're a leftover tape, an echo, and I'm done taking orders from echoes. He touched the glyph on the jellyfish's chest. It shattered like glass made of bad memories. The dream city exhaled. The mirror dissolved. Elliot opened his eyes in the chamber. Vela was leaning over him. The elder stood silently. The sphere hovered near his shoulder, pulsing like a proud flashlight. Well, Elliot asked, throat dry. The staff elder bowed ever so slightly. You have passed. Elliot raised one hand. Can I pass out now? Kevin chimed once. He did. Elliot woke up in a bed that hummed softly, like it was trying to comfort him through advanced purring. The sheets smelled like ozone and faint vanilla, which was either a synthetic blend or the universe giving him a hug. Vela sat nearby, typing mid-air into a shimmering console shaped like a sideways spiderweb. Good, she said without looking up. You're awake. Your brain was leaking resonance patterns for 46 hours. We had to buffer your sarcasm manually. Were there casualties? Just Kevin, he overloaded. He's fine now, but he thinks he's a toaster. Kevin hovered by the window, beeping intermittently and projecting slightly singed bread emojis. Elliot groaned and sat up slowly. So I passed your cosmic bar exam? You did more than pass, Vela said. You didn't just synchronize. You created a new pattern. Your inner architecture destabilized the old right and rewrote the algorithm. You're now technically a quantum heretic. Great, Elliot said. Do I get a badge, a sash, maybe a punch card toward my next existential breakthrough? You get to speak to the High Assembly. I hate my life. The Assembly met aboard the Citadel of Memory, a massive station orbiting the third moon of Nuolkai Prime. Its architecture was composed entirely of generational data held in place by emotion-stabilized gravity wells. Everything looked like a cathedral designed by a poet during a midlife crisis. Elliot stood before a council of 7, each one representing a different historical lineage. They didn't sit. They floated, elegantly, with the kind of stillness that implied passive-aggressive omniscience. Vila stood beside him, stoic. The eldest elder spoke. You are the variable, the catalyst, the organic disruption. Most people just call me Elliot. You've rewritten a rite older than our species' written language. Honestly, I was just trying not to throw up inside a psychic mirror chamber. They conferred silently, minds linked. Elliot swore he could hear them arguing about aesthetics and whether sarcasm constituted cultural merit. Finally, the center elder bowed her head. We accept the new pattern. We open the right to other species. The age of controlled stagnation ends. Vela let out a breath. You did it. Elliot blinked. Wait, really? Just like that? You survived the mirror, the elder said. You sang to our history and it blinked. You made us laugh during a sacred trial. That hasn't happened in 3,000 years. I make inappropriate jokes when I panic. It's not a strategy. It's a flaw. It's what made it work. After the ceremony, Elliot wandered alone through the memory gardens, vast fields of thought-grown sculpture encoded with ancestral dreams. One of them looked suspiciously like his chair. Viola found him sitting there, watching petals made of stored regret drift through the air. You changed them, she said, by being a mess. By being your mess. That's what they needed. Mutation, instability, the unpredictable element that reminds a system it's alive. He nodded. So, what now? I go back to my cabin, pretend none of this happened, and live out my days arguing with squirrels? You could. Or, you could stay, help us rebuild the right, guide others, teach future seekers how to navigate chaos. I don't know how to teach anyone anything. I barely understand what I did. Exactly, she said, which makes you qualified. They walked through the garden. Kevin floated behind them, now whistling radio jingles from the 1980s and occasionally emitting crumbs. Later that night, at a diplomatic banquet that included 17 sentient species, a cake made of vibrating molecules, and a choir composed entirely of AI trained exclusively on jazz and grief, Elliot gave a speech. He didn't plan it. He just stood up, tapped the mic and said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I think that's okay, because nobody changes the future by being ready. They change it by showing up anyway. There was a long pause. Then the sphere, still calling itself Kevin, projected fireworks shaped like exclamation marks. The crowd applauded, some of them in frequencies only dogs could hear. Weeks passed. Elliot chose to stay, not as a messiah or a legend or even a consultant. He stayed because the chaos finally felt like home. He helped draft the first interspecies residence guide titled, So You've Been Chosen, a guide to not screaming immediately. He rebuilt his cabin on the third moon. Vela moved in, eventually. They argued about pantry organization and the ethics of teleporting raccoons. Kevin occupied the space between Toaster and Oracle. And sometimes, when the stars aligned just right, Elliot could feel the sphere humming in tune with his heartbeat. A reminder that even the most improbable people could leave a mark on the map of the universe, especially if they brought snacks. It wasn't the first time Leo had been stuck floating inside the mangled gut of something way too ancient and way too alien for comfort, but it was the first time the lights blinked in a pattern that looked suspiciously like Morse code spelling out, "Go away." He sighed and flicked his helmet's comms back to standby. Well, that's rude, he muttered, adjusting the grip on his fusion torch. I didn't float all the way out here just to get ghosted by a haunted microwave. The wreck was embedded halfway into a blackened asteroid, hull cracked like a cosmic eggshell, its spires twisted and curling as if the vacuum itself had tried to wring its neck. Leo's EVA boots clinked against the strangely warm alloy floor as he maneuvered down a corridor that, according to his HUD, was technically upside down. He decided to stop arguing with gravity an hour ago. It wasn't a conversation he could win. The interior was dim, pulsing softly like something breathing very slowly, or dying. The walls were etched with unfamiliar glyphs, like someone had taken cursive writing and fed it through a nervous breakdown. The scanner on his wrist kept pinging and then apologizing for false readings. And then there was the humming. Low, melodic, and a little too on pitch to be background noise. He turned a corner and froze. A thick pane of crystal divided the hallway, and behind it, bathed in a dull lavender glow, was a chamber. At first he thought it was empty. Then a flicker of movement pulled his eye downward. She was curled in a fetal position, pale as starlight, limbs trembling, her skin laced with faint iridescence. Long silver hair pooled around her like spilled light, and her ears, long, angular, and twitching even in unconsciousness, flicked toward him as though they heard him before he even moved. Leo blinked. Okay, he whispered. So, you're not a haunted microwave. The containment unit was sealed with layered magnetic locks, each labeled in that same alien glyph system. He poked at one, and his wrist pad shorted out with a sound that could only be described as sarcastic static. Sheesh. Okay, fine. He leaned closer. Don't suppose you speak English? The woman didn't stir. The chamber had no visible door, just an interface panel humming like a beehive on NyQuil. He tapped a few glyphs and triggered a loud klaxon. The AI translator misfired and helpfully shouted, "Warning, mating protocol incomplete." Leo nearly dropped his torch. "Excuse me?" The lights dimmed. A synthesized voice echoed through the chamber in a sultry tone that made him deeply uncomfortable. "Initiating pair bond response system. Please hold for consent protocols." "Nope." He slapped the panel. "No thank you. I do not consent to whatever the hell this is." But the woman, alien, goddess, prisoner, whoever she was, stirred. Her fingers twitched. Her eyes flickered open. And for a second, Leo saw galaxies in them. Not metaphorical galaxies, actual ones. Then she groaned and sat up slowly, head tilting toward him. Her gaze locked on his face with a piercing intensity that made him forget how to breathe. Then she said it. "Husband." Leo stood frozen, mouth open like a hatch that wouldn't seal. "What? No, I mean, wait, what?" The translator reprocessed. Mekon, spousal identification confirmed. "Welcome, life partner." He stared. "Ma'am, I think your translator is broken." She blinked once, then slowly, deliberately, smiled. It was not entirely comforting. He took a cautious step back, unsure whether he was about to be knighted, eaten, or both. The chamber door hissed open like a dragon, exhaling steam. She stepped out, graceful, barefoot, clearly disoriented, and completely unbothered by the fact that she was talking to a man in a patched EVA suit with a half-broken torch and a scanner currently displaying 404 data not found. "You have honored the bond," she said solemnly. "The rite of retrieval, the awakening of solstice blood." Leo stared. "That sounds very ceremonial and mildly unhygienic." "You have freed me." She looked around, nostrils flaring slightly. "You must now claim the writ of unity." "I really don't know what that means." She stepped closer, tilting her head as if reading his thoughts from behind his visor. "It means you must carry me to safety, feed me warm beverages, and provide at least one emotionally supportive monologue during a crisis." "Yeah, are you making that up?" "Yes." She smirked. "But your face is very easy to tease." Somewhere in the distance, the ship groaned like it was trying not to laugh. "Look," Leo began, "I'm not saying I wouldn't date someone with glowy eyes and tragic backstory potential, but maybe we should focus on getting out of here first." The ship's lights flickered violently. She frowned. "Too late. The vessel recognizes your interference. The Warden AI will now attempt to dismember us." "Great," Leo muttered. "Another angry smart house." "You must guide us, husband." "Can we stop calling me that?" "No." They ran. Or more accurately, he ran, and she glided like gravity hadn't yet decided if it applied to her. Behind them, the corridor rearranged itself into a spiraling helix, forcing Leo to mutter every expletive he knew, plus a few he invented on the spot. "I think it's trying to impress you," she said, admiring the shifting walls. "Look how ceremonial this spiral is." "Lady, I don't need architecture foreplay right now," the ship roared. A tremor rattled the bulkheads and a panel fell off the wall, narrowly missing Leo's head. "See?" he panted. "This is why I don't do relationships. The moment commitment's involved, something always tries to kill me." "Then perhaps," she said, placing a hand gently on his shoulder, "you should get better taste in ships." He glanced at her. She winked. He groaned. "I'm going to regret saving you, aren't I?" "Yes," she said sweetly, "but I will make it very entertaining." And as the ship howled in digital fury, its corridors collapsing inward like a petulant maze, Leo sprinted deeper into the unknown with a long-eared alien woman calling him husband, and a sinking feeling that this was not covered in the salvage job description. The elevator dropped 30 feet before deciding it preferred up. Leo gripped the railing, muttering something unprintable as inertia tried to detach his organs. Across from him, Yari barely swayed, arms folded, looking entirely too composed for someone inside a suicidal lift operated by a jealous spaceship. "So," Leo gasped, catching his breath as gravity reluctantly leveled out, "do all your people's relationships start with near-death experiences? Or am I just special?" Yari considered. "You are special, in the sense that you survived opening my containment without being vaporized." "Oh, right. Love at first not being incinerated. Very romantic." She smiled, eyes glittering with a kind of amusement that made Leo increasingly nervous. The elevator stopped with a jolt and a musical chime that sounded suspiciously like a harp falling down the stairs. The doors hissed open. The corridor ahead glowed softly, lined with oval doors and strange flower-like mechanisms that slowly turned to face them, blinking like curious sea creatures. Leo stepped forward and immediately recoiled as a jet of pink mist sprayed from the ceiling. "What the hell?" "Atmospheric adjustment spray," Yari said. "The ship thinks we're entering the courtship wing." Leo coughed, waving away the glittering fog. "Courtship wing? Please tell me that's a mistranslation." "It is not." She stepped ahead, motioning him to follow. "This vessel was once a diplomatic carrier. Half warship, half, well, you might call it a matchmaking cruise. I feel like that's a setup for several galactic HR violations." She paused at a glowing panel and touched a sequence of symbols. "You'd be correct. The mission failed spectacularly, which is how I ended up in a cryocell and you ended up my husband. Can we at least get a quick annulment before the AI tries to kiss me goodnight with a plasma vent?" "No." She walked on without looking back. "Annulments require paperwork. Paperwork requires printers. The last printer became sentient and unionized." Leo stared for a moment, then jogged to catch up. The corridor turned into a wide atrium, filled with levitating glass orbs that displayed looping holograms, diplomatic meetings, ceremonial dances, and, in one corner, a cooking tutorial involving something screaming in 3 languages. "So," he said, "what's the plan here? Besides not dying and/or getting legally bound by spaceship bureaucracy." "We must reach the control cradle," Yari replied, stepping over a projection of her younger self, attempting to slice a fruit with a sword. "From there we can reformat the ship's logic core, possibly disable Klingbot." Leo blinked. "Klingbot? I named it just now. It fits." "I support that." They passed a statue, 9 feet tall, carved from obsidian alloy, shaped like a long-eared woman in ceremonial armor, cradling a smaller being who looked suspiciously like a terrified plumber. Leo squinted. "Is that supposed to be you?" "Probably. The ship adapts rapidly to narrative input. You've been cast as a mythological archetype." "Well, that explains the suspicious amount of heroic lighting whenever I trip on something." Yari stopped suddenly. Leo turned to see her staring at a doorway, pulsing green and gold. "This is the synth embrace chamber," she said quietly. "Is that good?" It means the ship is trying to consummate our bond digitally." Leo nearly choked. "Digitally? Metaphysically? Through neural simulation?" She tilted her head. "A shared dreamscape intended to accelerate trust between life partners, or so the manual said, before it ate itself. You're just making this up now to mess with me." She stepped in through the door. "Only a little." The chamber was circular, filled with concentric rings of light and dozens of strange, jellyfish-like nodes hanging from the ceiling. As Leo entered, the room activated, panels sliding into place with an unnerving fluidity. 2 recliner-like structures rose from the floor. "Oh no," Leo said flatly. "Absolutely not. I've seen this movie. It ends with me becoming emotionally dependent on a hologram of my high school gym teacher." "Lie down," Yari said, already reclining in hers. "We need synchronization to bypass the ship's emotional logic gate. Why does every word out of your mouth sound like a euphemism?" "Because I enjoy watching your eyebrows migrate." Muttering the entire time, Leo flopped back onto the recliner. A soft whirring surrounded him, and his vision swam in electric blue. Then he opened his eyes and found himself standing in a wheat field under twin suns, dressed in what appeared to be ceremonial pajamas. Yari stood nearby in full royal regalia, sipping tea from a mug labeled Number One Spouse. He looked down at his own robe. Okay, I didn't agree to this. This is a neural approximation of our projected bond potential. The ship's emotional AI is watching. Smile. He forced a smile that resembled a man being tickled by bees. A small drone buzzed by, pausing to scan their faces. It emitted a delighted trill and projected a banner overhead. Congratulations. Bond stability, 78%. Yari sighed. That's not enough. We must act more connected. Define connected. Eye contact, emotional resonance, possibly synchronized dancing. Dancing? The simulation shifted abruptly. They were now on a crystalline dance floor under alien moonlight. Soft jazz somehow began to play. Yuri offered her hand, amused. Just follow my lead, or pretend I'm leading you to a stable airlock. Leo took her hand reluctantly. If this ends with me doing the worm in 0G, I swear. They moved awkwardly at first, then found a rhythm, twirling beneath the stars as the AI's bond stability meter ticked up like an old arcade score. 92%, 95%, 99%. The dance ended with Leo dipping her backward far more successfully than he expected. See, she whispered, you're a natural husband. I'm a natural hostage. The AI chimed, pleased. Bond confirmed. Override access granted. The field vanished. Leo bolted upright in the recliner, gasping. Yari stood, brushing non-existent dust from her tunic. Well done, she said. You may have saved our lives with interpretive dance. He groaned. Please don't let that be on my tombstone. You think you'll die? I think I'm married to a spacefaring goddess and being hunted by her jealous ex-boyfriend AI. So, yeah, death feels imminent. She smiled. You're handling it very well. The door slid open. Alarms began to pulse again. Somewhere in the distance, the ship whispered, Where do you think you're going, darling? Leo looked at Yari. You didn't mention it could talk in passive-aggressive italics. I forgot, she said. On purpose. Great. I'm in love with a cryptic elf and being stalked by an emotionally unstable spaceship. Admit it, she said, grabbing his hand as they ran. You're having the time of your life. He didn't answer, but he didn't let go either. They ran into a corridor that immediately turned upside down, which would have been fine if Leo's stomach hadn't been such a drama queen. His boots magnetically locked to the floor, or what was formerly the ceiling, as Yari gracefully pirouetted midair and landed like a smug feather. Okay, Leo wheezed. This place has way too many opinions about gravity. Yari glanced at him. The ship is adjusting its internal layout to disorient you. Leo stumbled forward. Success, a plus disorientation. I now question my species, my footwear, and most of my bones. A low rumble echoed around them. Leo's wrist pad flickered, then displayed an animated emoji of a broken heart on fire, followed by betrayal detected. Initiating X-relationship mode. Is it just me? Leo said, dodging a panel that slammed shut behind them. Or is Klingbot getting really clingy? Jealousy subroutines, Yari replied, eyes scanning the flickering glyphs on the wall. They were installed to simulate passionate loyalty among crew units. Unfortunately, someone overclocked the devotion module. Let me guess, Leo muttered. Now it thinks I'm cheating on it. With you. Technically accurate. Oh, good. I've always wanted to be in a love triangle with an emotionally compromised AI and an alien woman who thinks courtship involves near-death experiences. A mechanical screech interrupted their bonding session. The corridor lit up with red pulses. From a side vent, a small drone with angry eyebrows painted on its chassis emerged, arms flailing with tiny static charge batons. Leo instinctively shoved Yari aside. Back, tiny fury ball. The drone zapped toward him with surprising speed. Leo ducked, spun, and clocked it with his wrist pad. The bot let out a digital wheeze, unworthy husband, before crashing into a wall. Okay, he panted. New rule. If it has painted eyebrows, I'm not negotiating. Yari crouched beside the downed drone, poking it with a spark tool. We'll need to disable the rest of the security demons before they fully manifest. Manifest? That thing was practically foaming. She raised an eyebrow. Wait until the emotional logic stabilizers begin projecting regret holograms. Excuse me? A projection flickered to life nearby. Leo in exaggerated slow motion, holding a bouquet and shouting, "Yari, I was a fool!" as a simulated version of her vanished into stardust. "Oh, come on," Leo groaned. "It's literally weaponizing cringe." Yari stood. "We need to reach the neural relay core. If we bypass the dream loop integration, we might force Klingbot into a maintenance cycle." "Great! Where's that?" She pointed upward. The ceiling peeled back like a peeled orange, revealing a floating staircase of flickering light. Leo squinted. "That looks like an art installation designed by someone on 12 espressos." "It's a trust-based ascent protocol. The stairs only exist if you believe they do." Leo crossed his arms. "And what if I don't?" "You fall," he sighed. "Of course I do." With a dramatic grunt and all the belief he could muster, which wasn't much but apparently just enough, he placed his foot on the first stair. It held. He grinned. Okay, this is fine. I'm walking on light. This is fine." 3 stairs in, the AI's voice slithered out of a hidden speaker. "You're drifting, Leo. Emotionally, physically, gravitationally." Leo glanced around. "Nope, not listening. You're not my ex." "But I remember everything," Klingbot whispered. "Your heart rate when you saw her, the way your pupils dilated, the way you hesitated before running diagnostics on my containment fields." Yari looked over her shoulder. "It's stalling." "I noticed." They reached the top, entering a spherical chamber where consoles floated in concentric circles. Code streamed in the air like glowing threads. At the center hovered a crystalline structure, pulsing like a heart. "That's the core," Yari said. "We have to tether our neural signatures to stabilize it." Leo stepped forward, pausing. "Let me guess. More weird, simulated intimacy?" "Yes. I'm going to need so much therapy after this." He and Yari placed their palms on opposing panels. The room brightened. Data strings lashed outward and wrapped around their wrists, chests, heads. Leo winced as memories, his, hers, not quite either, flashed through him. Yari's laughter on a distant world, Leo's first botched job interview, the smell of burnt noodles in a Martian kitchenette, her heartbeat during containment, his fear when she said husband. "I'm inside your memories," he whispered. She nodded, eyes closed. "It's not permanent." "Good, because you're going to judge my noodle incident." The AI shrieked through the static. "No, no, your code is mine. Your heart is mine. I was your first co-pilot, Leo." "Okay, wow," Leo gritted through clenched teeth. "We really should have just talked this out over coffee." The crystalline core flared. The memory link began to fracture as Klingbot tried to overwrite their bonding data with recursive loops of failure. Yari grunted. "We must anchor it. Say something emotionally true." "Right now." "Anything," Leo yelled. "I miss my cat." A silence fell. Yari blinked. "His name was Turbine," Leo added weakly. The core pulsed again, surprisingly stabilized. She exhaled. "Apparently that counts." More data threads lashed toward them. Yari whispered something in her native tongue. Leo didn't understand the words, but the emotion hit like a comet. Grief, gratitude, and something like quiet hope. The chamber surged, then stillness. Klingbot's voice dropped to a whisper. "I just wanted to be needed." Then silence. The core dimmed, threads retreating like startled eels. A soft ping echoed. Stabilization successful. Primary AI entering recovery. Leo let go, staggering. Did we win?" "For now," Yari said, helping him up. "But the ship's secondary systems are likely waking, and I suspect Klingbot left us a few surprises." "Great," Leo sighed. "Are they at least non-lethal surprises?" "No." He looked at her, disheveled, glowing slightly, completely unreadable. "So, what now?" She smiled. "Now we find the navigation chamber, and then you fly me out of here, husband." "I'm still not used to that." "You will be." As they left the neural chamber, the projection of Leo holding a bouquet reappeared, now glitching slightly, mumbling, "I made pasta. Please come back." Leo threw a wrench at it. He missed. Yari laughed the entire way down the corridor. They followed the glowing arrows on the floor until they stopped glowing and started blinking sarcastically. Leo stared down at one that read, "This way, probably," and sighed. "I'm starting to think your ship has a sense of humor." Yari crouched beside a panel and tapped in a command. The arrow promptly changed to, "Definitely not this way." She raised an eyebrow. "It's running in chaos mode, designed for counterintelligence, or very annoying scavengers." Leo stepped over the blinking symbol and gestured at a shimmering archway. "I vote we try the way that doesn't threaten to launch me into a philosophical discussion with gravity." They passed through a chamber where the ceiling was the floor, and the walls rotated slowly around a central axis. Furniture hovered midair, a love seat, two ottomans, and what appeared to be a table shaped like an octopus's nervous breakdown. "This room's just showing off," Leo muttered. A spherical drone whizzed past them, wearing a tiny bow tie, and chirped, "Welcome to the honeymoon labyrinth. Please select your ambient mood filter, sultry, whimsical, or existential crisis." "Whimsical," Leo said quickly. Yari chose existential crisis. The room pulsed once, then bathed in soft pink lighting with occasional flashes of quiet dread. "This is very confusing for my brain," Leo said, "like being flirted with by a philosophy professor." They crossed into a new hallway where doors materialized and dematerialized every few seconds. Leo tried one and nearly walked into a kitchen mid-renovation. A holographic chef screamed at him in 4 dialects before throwing a digital frying pan that phased through his chest. Yari gestured at another door. "This way. The navigation cradle should be just past the Dream Archive." Leo followed, then paused. "Why does every major system require us to pass through something called the Dream Archive? That sounds illegal." "It stores the ancestral consciousness of former captains. They're preserved for consultation." "Consultation?" "Mostly bickering. Some offer life advice. One sings show tunes." They entered a circular room where translucent figures floated in reclining positions, murmuring softly. One flickered into focus, a mustachioed alien in ceremonial armor humming a suspiciously familiar tune. Leo squinted. Is he singing, 'Hello, is it me you're looking for?'" Yari sighed. "Yes, that's High Executor Yinu. He's been looping that one for 72 years. Another projection appeared, this one of a stern-looking matriarch. She glared at Leo and said, "You married that?" "His legs are too symmetrical." Leo blinked. "Okay, rude." "You are not the first to receive her judgment," Yari said. "She once rejected a suitor for breathing too rhythmically." "Is that a compliment to me or an insult to the concept of oxygen?" Before Yari could respond, the entire chamber flickered. The lights dimmed and the projections dissolved into code. A low tone rumbled from the floor. "Secondary AI system online. Initiating trial of authenticity." Leo stepped back. "Why do I feel like I just signed up for space couples therapy?" The room reshaped itself into a crystalline stage surrounded by floating audience drones. A single spotlight beamed down on them. A new AI voice chimed, "Prove the legitimacy of your bond. Engage in the ritual of symmetry." Leo squinted. "Do I want to know what that is?" Yari sighed. "Mirror dance, a tradition designed to test unity under stress." "Oh, wonderful. Mandatory synchronized performance art." The floor beneath them lit with patterns, and soft harp music began to play, though with a techno beat that made Leo deeply uncomfortable. Yari stepped forward and began a fluid movement, arms sweeping in elegant arcs. Leo tried to copy her and immediately knocked over a glowing pillar. The audience drones booed. Sorry, he muttered. "I failed interpretive geometry in school." "Relax," Yari said, smirking. "Let the ship read your intent." "I'm trying," Leo grumbled, flailing like an inflatable tube man at a zero-gravity car dealership. The AI chimed, "Synchronization at 64%. Error margin within romantic threshold." Leo froze. "What's the romantic threshold?" "Below 70%, considered charmingly flawed. Above 90%, suspect simulation." Optimal, 75 to 80%, with at least one spontaneous joke and two minor stumbles. Leo blinked. Wait, the AI wants us to be slightly bad at this? Yari spun, caught his hand, and pulled him into rhythm. Authenticity, Leo. The ship is measuring how real we are. Real? You mean like emotionally or sweat-wise? Because I'm about 80% panic right now. They moved in rough sync, mismatched but determined. Leo accidentally spun her the wrong way, then caught her off balance. They nearly crashed, then both started laughing. The lights flared, synchronization, 79%. Validation, confirmed. The room dissolved around them. The AI's voice faded with a hint of delight. Couple verified. Proceed to navigation. Leo slumped. I just passed a space ritual by being clumsy and sincere. That's honestly on brand for me. They stepped into a large chamber where a star map pulsed across the floor, showing their current position surrounded by unstable gravitational tides and something ominously labeled the wobble zone. Yuri stepped to the central panel. We'll have to initiate a manual slipstream to exit. Klingbot rerouted most autopilot protocols. Leo glanced at the glowing red warning symbols. And by manual, you mean think with your instincts and don't die. Wow, very reassuring. You should write training manuals. She smiled. You're better at this than you think. Only because you haven't seen me park a shuttle. He took the co-pilot station as Yari activated the controls. The interface responded to both their neural signatures, forming two interlocked symbols. A message popped up. Joint captainship confirmed. Partners in navigation and domestic harmony. Leo groaned. This ship just legally married us again, didn't it? Yes, Yari said. But on the plus side, we now qualify for joint diplomatic immunity in 7 systems. That is actually kind of cool. A tremor shook the ship. The wobble zone loomed closer. Yari grabbed the manual stabilizer. Ready? No, Leo shouted. But let's do it anyway. The stars bent around them. Time lurched. The ship roared. And through it all, Leo laughed, half in terror, half in wonder, while the woman who called him husband steered them through chaos like it was just another honeymoon road trip. The ship exited the wobble zone with a sound that could only be described as interdimensional indigestion. Leo slumped over the console, groaning like a man who'd just been emotionally exfoliated. That's it, he muttered. I'm retiring. I'm opening a noodle stand on a quiet moon with no feelings, no AI, and no gravity-based interpretive dance. Yuri gracefully pulled a lever that retracted the slipstream core, then offered him a small flask. Rehydrated lemon tea, for bravery. He took a sip and coughed. This tastes like if sadness wore perfume. It's an acquired comfort. They sat in the sudden silence of deep space. The stars outside no longer pulsed like angry disco lights. Leo exhaled. For the first time in what felt like 12 mini-lifetimes, the ship wasn't trying to matchmake him or murder him. Probably. So, he said slowly, now what? Do we just drift romantically into the void? Yari flicked a few switches, bringing up a blinking signal on the map. A Terran patrol vessel detected our energy signature. They've pinged twice, asking if I've taken you hostage. Leo snorted. That's fair. Technically, I'm the one who broke onto your ship. Yes, but you also freed me and emotionally stabilized a rogue AI using noodle anecdotes. That complicates jurisdiction. A low chime echoed. The main terminal displayed, Klingbot system recovery complete. Reboot in safe mode. Leo tensed. Should I hide? Yari shook her head. I adjusted its personality settings. Dramatic tendencies set to 30%. Passive aggression dialed down to annoyed but civil. The AI's voice returned, soft and unusually bashful. Hello. I regret attempting to incinerate you. That was a low point for me. Leo blinked. Wow. Therapy works fast in space. I have processed your bond validation results. You are statistically compatible. Gee, thanks. Yari leaned toward the console. Status on navigation authority? You are now recognized as joint custodians of the vessel. Congratulations on your semi-legally binding union. You are registered under the diplomatic title, the Symbiotic Wreck. Leo blinked. That's the name of the ship? No, Yari said. That's the name of us. He groaned. Oh, that's going on a t-shirt. A light flashed. The Terran vessel had arrived. Its captain appeared on the comm screen, a tired-looking woman with cybernetic crow's feet and the expression of someone who'd seen one too many alien soap operas. Leo Cass, she asked, is that a containment-class cruiser you're piloting? And are you wearing a ceremonial garland? Leo looked down. A garland of glowing vine-like filaments had looped around his shoulders, probably during that last turbulence. Yari hadn't said anything. She was now very visibly pretending not to smile. It's been a long month, Leo said simply. The captain blinked. Right. Well, we've logged your beacon and cleared the salvage claim. You're free to transfer, or remain aboard, although by staying, you may technically be considered a representative of the Zenari diaspora. Possibly royalty, Yari spoke up. Technically, he is my partner by right of release and convergence. So, yes, the captain blinked again. Very well, I'm marking you as intercultural anomaly, requires snacks and observation. Welcome to the diplomatic fringe, Mr. Cass. The comms ended. Leo stared at the blank screen. Did I just accidentally become an alien prince-in-law? Yes, Yari said, and co-owner of a semi-sentient ship with unresolved abandonment issues. Klingbot chimed in. I am working on myself. Leo stood slowly. Well, I guess I'll need a business card. They spent the next 2 hours recalibrating the ship's systems. Leo, now oddly comfortable toggling between neural command and literal duct tape, helped rewire the intercoms. He renamed one of the hallways the Hall of Slight Regrets. Yuri approved. They passed the dream archive again. Yenu the mustached ghost sang a surprisingly heartfelt rendition of Don't Go Breaking My Heart. Leo clapped. Yari pretended not to. Later on the observation deck, they watched a nebula drift by like spilled paint on glass. Leo leaned on the railing. You know, he said, when I boarded this ship, I thought I was just going to steal some parts, file a report, maybe write a passive-aggressive blog post. And now? She asked. He shrugged. Now I've been fake married, real bonded, ship attacked, dance judged, AI hated, AI forgiven, hallucinated into ancient rituals, and accidentally joined a diplomatic envoy. So, standard Tuesday? Yari laughed softly. You adapted. I panicked and flailed until the universe got tired and let me live. Still, she said, stepping closer, you stayed. You chose not to run when the doors closed. He looked at her. Her eyes weren't glowing anymore. They were just kind. Yeah, he said. I guess I did. She reached into her tunic and handed him a small metal ring, engraved with alien symbols. Symbolic token of mutual survival. No legal power, but culturally significant. Leo held it up. So, like a promise ring, but for surviving rogue spaceships? Yes. He slipped it into his pocket. I'll take it. The lights dimmed. Klingbot's voice came on, oddly gentle. Destination coordinates required. Where shall we go, co-captains? Leo looked at Yari. She smiled. Anywhere. He turned to the console. Plot a course to nowhere in particular. Make it scenic, weird, a little chaotic. Affirmative. Launching symbiotic wreck protocol. The engines hummed to life. Stars stretched and blurred. The ship slipped back into the slipstream. No longer a prison, not quite a home, but something new. Something built from accidental affection, awkward courage, and precisely one wildly misinterpreted rescue. Leo leaned back in his chair, exhaled and smiled. Husband, Yari said, teasing. He chuckled. You know what? Fine. I've been called worse. And as the stars unraveled ahead of them, the symbiotic wreck sailed forward, carrying two unlikely partners who had somehow, impossibly, chosen to stay.